All right. Guys, welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. We're finally back doing a live stream. It's about time. Tell you what. We'll fix our camera real quick. I know it's been a couple weeks, but we took a couple weeks off. We were out doing trips. We were out finishing up our predictions, but it is good to be back doing another live call-in show. I can see we've already got a couple guys in the chat already. Hunter, 5657, good to see you, man. Legalized Quack, of course, always nice when you're in the chat. Ryan McCormick, happy to see you. DM, super pumped you're here. Always glad talking to you. Always happy talking to you. Glad you're here with us. Uncle Luke, Cyclone Mitch, Ryan Mel, all of you guys, what's going on? And Nicholas Thompson, happy to have you. Happy to have all of you, all 10 of you right now. And hopefully it'll continue to grow as we go on through this live stream. Now, I will say the last live stream we had went about 2.5 hours long, give or take. And that was a record for us here at the Gridiron Expert. That was insane. So I can promise you that it's not going to be that long, and that we don't have room in our schedule. Still got some videos to shoot tonight and today that we can't, do a 2.5 hour live stream. But we will definitely go well over an hour and take as many calls as you can. And here in a second, I will put that number out in the chat. I will announce that, and we'll start taking your calls to talk anything and everything college football, which is exactly what we have down in the description. Matthew Crook, what's going on? Henry Jones, the GOAT, appreciate that. And Cyclone Mitch, yes, sir, we are growing steadily. I'll say that. We have a goal that we're trying to reach. We're trying to hit, I think 3,000 is a reasonable goal to reach by the end of college football season. That is my goal. When the national championship ends in January, I would like to have 3,000. But I appreciate that. And like I said, the only reason it's growing, the reason that this place is growing and our channel is growing and that we still do these things is because of you guys. And I will continue to say that over and over and over again. So a couple of things that I want to address real quick before we get jumping on these calls and start jumping about some college football talk. One thing that we should note is I will be moving back to school this Saturday. So next week, when we have a couple of videos out for you guys, it will not be here at Gridiron headquarters, as Emperor of Rome always likes to say. It will be in a brand new location, different things on the wall, but we're going to try to deck it out to make it look like a pretty good set. So we will be in a different location. Things will be a little bit different there. But the only reason I say that is because, one, the location will change, and two, we will not have any videos out on Saturday. So we're going to take a day off to get everything situated there, and we'll move on and continue to bring content in preparation for week 0, which I saw Legalized Quack say earlier. It's just 10 days away. So a week and a half away from the day we will have college football. Miami and Florida down in Orlando. The second thing I want to address is that tomorrow, for anybody on here that has signed up, tomorrow we will be releasing our first ever newsletter. So be checking your inbox. Maybe, I hope it doesn't go to your junk mail. Let's hope it doesn't go there. But be checking your inbox because our first ever newsletter will be coming out. Plenty of quality info and content coming out there that you're not going to get here, that you're not going to get on YouTube. And I want to make that very clear that the stuff we put there, you won't get here on YouTube. And we're going to have that newsletter coming out every single week. And make sure you go sign up for that. It's over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. At the bottom of the page, there is a little box. You can enter your email address, and boom, you're signed up, and you'll receive our newsletter. But it's coming out tomorrow, so make sure you keep your eye out for that. And, of course, as always, sign up for the expert picks as well. You can also do that on our website. We've had a lot of people sign up, and it's been overwhelming. So I appreciate everybody that's here in the chat that has done that, but it's not too late. Our first spread picks don't come out until August 28th. So even though we have week 0 games on the 24th, we won't be releasing spread picks for that. We're just starting on the 28th in preparation for week 1. So the newsletter and expert picks are still available to sign up for year-round, but you definitely want to get on top of that before the season starts. So go over to our website and make sure to do that. Now, of course, I want to make sure to hit all of the comments here. I saw, Ryan, you asked, are we going to be answering questions from the chat? Yes, we will answer as many questions from the chat as we can. Even if we get calls, we tend to put people on hold. So keep that in mind. We will put you on hold for a little bit on occasion to make sure we can get to the chat questions. And I know the last video we also had, we went on for like an hour with one caller. So that's not going to happen again. We're going to try to limit everybody to about 5 minutes. So keep that in mind. 5 minutes or less if you do call in today. And the last thing I want to take care of before we put the number out in the chat is that, we're near the end of prediction season, guys, and that is the craziest thing to me is how fast this thing has gone by. We had 10 on-site predictions this season. We've hit every single Power 5 team. We're working through our Group of 5 recaps. So we have 2 left. We have the MAC and the Sun Belt. The MAC will be released tomorrow. The Sun Belt will be released on Friday. We're not going to post any today. This is kind of taking our video for the day. We will then take off on Saturday. Sunday, we have a special playoff video for you guys. Now, that is not going to be our playoff predictions, but I think you're really going to enjoy it. It's an interesting playoff scenario that, based on our predictions, trying to decide who would get the final spot in the college football playoff. And I think you'll really enjoy that. Monday, we will then release our college football playoff predictions and New Year's Six bowl game predictions. So I know that's something that a lot of people have been looking forward to. I think Jackson, if he is on here, or if he later gets on here, he's been asking about that. That will be on Monday. And also on Monday, the top 25 is released, the AP top 25. We will have a video out on that on Tuesday, breaking down that top 25 and kind of showing what if we agree or disagree, much like we do when the college football playoff rankings are released. So tons of content coming your way over the next week. And I said we were going to have content all the way up to week 0. And once college football starts, you know how it's going to go. We're going to have weekly previews, recaps, live streams, ranking analysis, everything across the board. You're not going to want to miss any of that. And I should also add that in our newsletters, you will receive a schedule of what days we will post what. You'll know every single day. Monday, we're going to do this. Tuesday, we're going to do this. You'll know everything if you sign up for that newsletter. Or if you just want to, if you like to live on the edge and just, be excited, you don't have to. You can just wait until we get the post notifications here on YouTube. So all of that being said, it's time to talk some college football. If you guys are ready, I hope you are. If not, we can just continue to talk shop and things that probably don't interest you as much. I'm going through the chat real quick before we put the number out there. Yeah, legalized quack. We'll do week 0 picks for like straight up, like we always do, but not spread. It'll be week 1. Let's see. Eli, good to see you. Micro Chunky, good to have you. Nick P, always good to have you. Miami quarterback situation, of course, something that we'll talk about greatly. I'm sure we'll get some call-ins on that. And Jaron Williams beating out Tate Martell and N'Kosi Perry, that was a huge shock. And we'll get deeper into detail on that here in a second. But here we go. We're going to do the call-in number right now. Remember, you might be put on hold, and we're going to try to limit you to about 5 minutes. So let's keep that in mind. But here's the number. We're putting it in the chat right now. Let's see what we got today. 901-297-4545. That is your call-in number. We'll be looking for you right here on the phone. So DM, once again, glad to have you, man. Drew Posey, always good to have you. Crazy Giants fan 26, I do have a top 25. We did our preseason top 25 not too long ago. If you scroll through our channel, you'll see that video. You can go check that out. But we haven't done like an updated one. So that was back in like June or July. We put out our preseason top 25. And I stick by that. That's what I believe the rankings should be when week 1 rolls around. Of course, probably not going to be, but we do have one out there. All right, we got a call. Let me pull this back up here. All right, hold on. We lost control.
To send a voicemail, press 2.
All right, let's see what we got. Who do we have on the line with us?
Wait, am I on stream now?
Yes, sir. Who we got?
Okay, so here's like my top 4 like college football playoff teams. So I believe that Clemson will be number 1. I believe Oklahoma will win the Big 12 championship, and they'll be ranked number 2 in the country. I actually believe Alabama will be number 3.
Okay.
And I can't see Georgia making the playoffs with 2 SEC teams. So I'm going to say Ohio State gets in also.
So you think that we got another guy coming on hold here. We're going to give him a call back in 1 second. But you believe that – 1 second.
Call.
Hold on. We're going to put you on hold for 1 second, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Are you still there? Mike, you still there?
Yes, sir.
All right. We had to put you on hold for 1 second. We got another call. So you think Clemson's number?
Okay.
You think Clemson's number 1? You think Oklahoma's number 2? Alabama 3, and then you have Ohio State at number 4.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a record for those teams? I presume you have Clemson being undefeated. Maybe the same for Alabama.
Yes.
Okay. Looking at that, those are all 4 teams very viable. I think I have. Now, actually, I'm not going to say that. I don't want to spoil who I've got in the playoff yet. But I agree with you in the sense that if Georgia were to lose, let me ask you this before we go into that. What record do you have Georgia going this season?
I have them going about 11-1. 11-1.
And then I assume you have them losing to Alabama in the SEC title.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to say that a Georgia team that's 11-2, including that loss to Alabama, won't be able to get in.
Yeah.
It's the same scenario we had last year when it was a battle between Oklahoma getting that 4th spot and Georgia, where you're taking a 1-loss or undefeated Big 12 champion in Oklahoma, and then you're taking a potential 2-loss Georgia team. And even though I think Georgia's strength of schedule would be better, I just don't see the committee letting in a 2-loss Georgia team that didn't win the SEC over an Oklahoma team that's either undefeated or 1 loss and won the Big 12. I just don't think that's possible. So I agree with that there. And I presume you have, Ohio State would beat Michigan. You have them beating the Wolverines again?
Yeah, they beat Michigan. Yeah.
All right, fair enough. Well, solid picks. We'll make sure to keep an eye on that when the playoffs come back around. If you nail it, you have to come back on the show and kind of get some bragging rights in.
Yeah.
Well,
the thing about it is, the thing is, South Carolina. I have a feeling that South Carolina might actually be able to beat Clemson at the end of the year, to where Clemson might actually get kicked out of the playoffs.
Kicked out of the playoffs by in your scenario, by South Carolina. Is that what you said?
It's just there's a chance it might happen.
Well, you look at, Eli is right. I'm looking at the chat here. South Carolina over Clemson is absolutely a bold pick, but we have to keep in mind the performance that Jake Bentley and that South Carolina offense put on Clemson last year. I mean, over 600 yards of offense. If their defense had been any better, they might have been able to get a win over Clemson. So you're right. But I will say this: if Clemson were to fall to South Carolina, I still think Clemson gets in. I don't think there's any way that Clemson falls out.
Like at number 4, somewhere around that.
Yeah, they'd probably be 3 or 4. I mean, you remember a couple of years ago they fell to Pittsburgh towards the end of the season and still ended up getting into the playoff. And so the same can be said for South Carolina, who's not going to be a bad team this season. That's a non-conference game. Clemson would probably still win the ACC, and they're sure they'll lock for the playoff. So, but no, bold predictions. I like the college football playoff picks, and I'm ready to see how it all plays out for you.
Yeah, I believe Clemson, they'll go 12-0. Oklahoma, I see them about going around 11-1 to 12-0.
Okay.
I see Alabama going about 12-0, yeah. And then Ohio State, I think they'll probably go 11-1 to 12-0.
Yeah, that's the only way Ohio State can get in is going 11-1 or 12-0. A 2-loss Ohio State team, in my opinion, would not get into the college football playoff.
Yeah, it's hard for a 2-loss team to get in.
Right, exactly. It's tough for any 2-loss team to get in, let alone Ohio State, whose 2 losses would more likely come against teams like Nebraska and Michigan, or maybe you take something out of non-conference, although their non-conference is not that difficult. So, yeah, you're right. So, across the board, tough for anybody, but Ohio State hasn't had much success with being a 2-loss team when they're trying to get into that Final Four.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, we appreciate you calling in, man. We're going to wait and find out how these playoff picks shape up for you, and we'll make sure to keep an eye out.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You got it, man. Thanks for calling in.
All right, I'll get the train.
All right, thank you. All right, so we're back. We are back. That was Mike on the line talking about his college football playoff picks: Clemson, Oklahoma, Alabama, and then Ohio State. So Oklahoma jumping all the way up to number 2 and would have a rematch against Alabama in the college football playoff semifinals. All right, we got another call right now coming in from Augusta, Georgia. And I'm going to make sure to hit all of these comments here in the chat again, but let me take a look at who we got. See if this works. Is anybody there? Can you hear us? Anybody hear us on the line from, I think it was Augusta, Georgia? And they hung up, so apparently not. Apparently not. No worries there. Here we go again. Same number.
Call from 2. To accept, press 1.
All right, who do we have on the line right now?
This is Hugh.
Who is it now?
Yeah, hello.
Who do we have on the line?
This is Hugh.
Hugh?
Yes, sir. Love the page, man.
All right, 1 second, Hugh. We're going to take this call too. We're going to put him on hold, swap it. All right, Hugh, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here, man.
All right, what's your question or thing you want to talk about, sir?
Well, I just want to talk about the Tate Martell situation. That boy, he doesn't come to practice once he loses the starting job. That's just crazy to me. I don't understand. This big-headed guy just wants to come around, act like he's all big and bad, then lose the job to a freshman. That's just crazy to me. How do you feel about that? I think you should have the same opinion.
No, I agree. It's extremely crazy. One of the things that I've seen across social media, you look at you go on Instagram, Twitter, anywhere, people about Tate Martell, is that this guy was, I think his mentality was he expected everything to be handed to him. And if you go look at some of the things that he used to put out on Twitter, saying that he was much better than any A&M quarterback on the roster, talking about people not trying to swing and miss. The guy back when he was at Ohio State complaining that Justin Fields had never done anything for Ohio State, so there was no way he would win the job. And then a week later, he transferred to Miami, where he then falls to a freshman. And to me, it's embarrassing, and it should be a thing. The thing with athletes, man, I'm all for, you can talk a little trash talk. Here's the thing, though, you better be able to back it up. And Tate Martell has not been able to back it up. And boom, Eli right there, taking the words out of my mouth. So this guy,
He's gonna have to come to UTEP.
UTEP, yeah, well, Tate Martell, I don't even know if he can start at UTEP the way he's been playing.
Man, we love him at UTEP. We love him. Balling out against some of these Conference USA people. We love him.
Well, you can only hope. But the question is, I will say this for everybody, not just to you, but for everybody here. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this is not the end of the Miami quarterback battle. Williams got the job for Week 1 against Florida, and now if he goes out against Florida and leads Miami to a victory and does phenomenal there, well, you can maybe write it off then. But if he struggles or is just a little bit average, keep in mind that Perry and Martell will still fight for that job for the rest of the season. But if it becomes evident that the job has gone to Williams, it will not be pretty much taken away from him. Martell will need to, one article said, go to wide receiver, which I know he will not do because that's just more work. And otherwise, he's going to have to transfer again. And where he would transfer, he needs to transfer to a much, much smaller school. Go to the Conference USA. Go to UTEP. Go to Texas San Antonio.
He needs to come to UTEP. He needs to go to UTEP. They'll put some hair on his chest down there. He ain't gonna ride. He ain't gonna come in and just take the job. They're gonna put some hair on that boy's chest. He's gonna take some licks down there.
Well, we know that's exactly what he needs. We know that's exactly what he needs. So, yeah. Well, we can only hope. I'd love to see him go to UTEP.
Show him what's up.
Let's see it. Let's see. I mean, we can only hope. We can only hope. He could transform UTEP into a potential bowl team.
I just don't see it, man. We got the talent this year to get blowing up. I just don't see it, man. I just don't see it, man. I love your page, man. I love everything you do, but that you up there, you step prediction, man. You really got me. I was balling my fist though. I was about to push something, man. You're my idol, man, but. Hey man, you got to change that UTEP bit, man. You got to change that.
Well, when you've got a program in UTEP that's won one game in the past 2 years or 2 games in the past 2 years.
That was a meaningful game, man. That game meant something.
It was the turnaround for this year, right? That one game is going to spark this 12-0 run, right?
We're turning around this year. We're going 12-9. We're gonna win the Super Bowl. We're gonna be so good we play the Patriots Super Bowl. We're gonna win the World Cup. We're gonna win the MLB World Series. We're gonna play everything, man.
Let's see it. Let's see if the Miners. We talked about Tate Martell backing up this talk. Let's see if you and your Miners can back up your talk.
Sir. Hey man, I gotta go, man. Hey, love the page, man. Thanks for calling.
Appreciate it. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks for letting me call.
Hey, you got it, man.
Go Miners.
Don't you just love the passion for anybody's team? These homers believe in everything. I love it. But to stay along those same lines, I'm going to go through the chat here in a second. Trey Drew, what's going on? Glad to have you. Crazy Giants fan, of course, once again, a shout out there. Cyclone Mitch, yeah, thank you. Everybody smash the like button. All right, we got a call from South Carolina. Let me just take a look. All right, let's see who we have on the line here. One second. Who's on the line right now?
It's me.
Is this Hunter?
Yep.
All right, Hunter, how's it going, man?
I'm doing great here. It's hard to say the year right now in the States.
What was that?
It's the hottest day of the year in the state right now.
Hottest day of the year. Well, they're telling me about it, man. Over here in Arkansas, it's the same way. So what you got on your mind, Hunter? What you got?
I was hoping that you could talk about the Arizona Sun Devils defense.
What specifically about the Sun Devils defense do you want to know? Just in general, or?
Just how good do you think they're going to be? Do you think that they're going to be very good this year with a lot of picks and a lot of sacks, or do you think that they're going to be okay this year and be able to get any sacks and probably go 9-3?
I think if I recall, I've got Arizona State going, I think either 8-4 or 9-3 in 2019. I can't remember. Did those Pac-12 predictions a while ago. But I'll tell you this, Hunter. Herm Edwards was one of my favorite hires of last season. And a lot of people wanted to go ahead and criticize Edwards, saying, this guy hasn't coached in nearly a decade. Why is he going to come back to the coaching game? He can't do it. And he got Arizona State to 7 wins in a bowl game, and a decent bowl game at that. Defensively, Hunter, I think that's going to be one of the strengths for the Sun Devils, personally, just because they lost so much talent offensively. Now, Benjamin at running back is a guy that, for me, could be a potential Heisman dark horse. So everybody out there listening, Benjamin is the real deal and just didn't get enough attention last year because he played for Arizona State. That was just a 7-win team. They didn't get as much national exposure. But Benjamin's the real guy. He can put up maybe over 2,000 yards on the ground this season. Defensively, though, Hunter, you're dealing with the freshman quarterback. They lose N'Keal Harry, the first-round pick to the Patriots. So the defense is going to be what's going to have to keep the Sun Devils in this game or in these games this season if they want to maybe win 8 or 9 games. But I think that's going to be one of the strengths for them, no doubt in my mind. The question will mostly be on the offense. Can Jaden Daniels, the freshman who was just named starting quarterback for Arizona State, will he be able to get them enough wins and take the load off of, Benjamin and maybe see Arizona State contend for a Pac-12 title?
Well, that's really all I want to hear from you. So thank you for the answer.
Yeah, you got it. That's a great question. Very different question. Usually we just got how do you think someone's going to do this season? But that was a very solid question, and all the way from South Carolina talking about Arizona State. So good question, Hunter. I appreciate you calling in, man.
I got one more thing.
Yeah, what was you got?
Hashtag Road to 5,000 for the Gridiron Expert.
Hey, well, appreciate that, Hunter. Love you, man. Appreciate it.
Nothing much.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Okay, you too.
Man, already another call from Newton, Iowa, right off the bat. And trust me, guys, we will get to the chat. That was Hunter5657 giving me a little hype and talking some good questions about Arizona State. All right, we're going to take this call from Iowa. Hey, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. All right, this is Cyclone Mitch. Am I right?
Yeah, what's up?
What's up, Mitch? How's it going, man?
I'm doing really good. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. First time you called in. Appreciate you doing it.
Oh yeah. Do you think Iowa State will have the best defense in the Big 12 again?
That's a great question. They will be, Mitch, I've said it, overall teams, I've said Iowa State is a top 3 team behind Oklahoma and Texas. But solely focusing on defense, it's going to be between, personally, Iowa State or TCU. That is going to be your top 2 defenses. Texas loses too much defensively. Oklahoma dealing with some injuries right now to, I believe it was Norwood in the secondary. And obviously Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley has not had the most potent of defenses. But TCU is the guy that I want to keep an eye on more than anything else right now. I'm really curious to see the bounce back year for Gary Patterson. They have so much returning talent defensively, more so than they do offensively, and dealt with so many injuries last season that they're going to be more experienced than people are giving them credit for. So I think right now it is absolutely between Iowa State and TCU. One of those teams is going to be your top defense in the Big 12, and I think that just remains to be seen. But no doubt they'll be top 3, probably top 2 in my opinion.
Yeah, I think if TCU gets the right quarterback, they could be Big 12 championship contenders. Yeah,
no, for sure. And I think a lot of people are kind of picking TCU as kind of that upset, that dark horse pick in the Big 12 this season. And you're right. The question is going to be at quarterback. And personally, if I were Gary Patterson, I'm not there. I'm not at practice. I'm not watching how these players have performed and conducted themselves. But Alex Delton transfers over from Kansas State. He's got experience in the Big 12. Why not give him a shot? Who's also a dangerous dual threat quarterback who, as we know, when TCU has had a dual threat quarterback, they have thrived in recent years. So I think he would be the probably number 1 starter, in my opinion, and then go from there. If he's the right man for the job, pair him up with that defense, you're right. They're a tough team to stop. I had a couple guys disagree with me. I think I have them going 8-4, and I think a lot of people have them going like 6-6. And that with Gary Patterson, he went 7-6 last year. He's not going just at 500 this year. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, man, I'm excited to watch Iowa State this year. I know that's your team. I was at Jack Trice a couple weeks ago. That was an amazing stadium. Got to take a look around the facilities and hang out on the field there for a little while. But this is a team that I really think could shake up the Big 12. For years now, it's just been really your Big 3 has been Oklahoma, Texas, and TCU. And now Iowa State enters the mix and finally has a chance to make some noise and maybe even win the Big 12 title. So I'm really excited to see that.
Yep.
Well, Mitch,
It was nice talking with you, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you for calling in, and hope to hear from you next time.
All right, see you later.
All right, man. All right, well, Cyclone Mitch coming over from Iowa, big-time Iowa State fan and one of the best supporters that we have had since day one here at the Gridiron Expert. So happy to finally get to talk to him on one of our live streams. Master Ego, did I ever play football? I did. I did actually play football, and I'll get to that in a second. I'll make sure to address that. We've got a call from Ohio right now. All right, did I hear that right? Was that Micro Chunky?
Yeah.
All right, I saw you in the chat a second ago. So how you doing, man?
Good, how are you?
We are doing good. Thank you for calling in.
Bold prediction. Rutgers win the national championship. No, I'm just kidding.
Man, I know if Comic Dude was on here, he would be thrilled right now. And I know if DM was on here, he'd be thrilled right now, too.
All right, so top 4. Clemson number 1, Alabama 2, Ohio State 3, Oklahoma 4. There we go.
There you go. I like it. I like the pick. Really, I think that's probably the majority of people's picks for the college football playoff, unless you're just trying to be really, really bold. The only toss-up, I think, in people's minds is between Michigan or Ohio State coming out of the Big Ten. That's the one that's going to throw people for a loop. This year it's in Ann Arbor. This is supposed to be one of the best Michigan teams that Harbaugh's had in a while, at least the best team that he's had to beat Ohio State. Ohio State maybe taking a step back, but I think it is going to be a toss-up between Ohio State and Michigan for that maybe 3 or 4 spot in the college football playoff.
Totally totally agree. As you can tell, I'm from Ohio, so you already know who I'm picking.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Hey, as a fan, I get you have to go with your Buckeyes, and I don't blame you one bit for that.
Yeah. Who's your favorite team? Never knew.
Never knew. Hey, well, everybody on this chat knows my team, because of the state that I am in, of course, is Arkansas, so the Razorbacks, and that's something that I unfortunately am partially ashamed of. So we are dealing with that the best we can. But of course, when we're on here, we don't talk about our team. We try to stay very unbiased for that stuff. But yeah, Razorbacks are mine, just being in the state of Arkansas. But hopefully, we'll see better days here pretty soon.
Yeah. I was thinking, do you think LSU has a chance to beat Alabama this year?
They would have a chance. I've said it in my prediction videos for both teams, but I will say that if this game is actually in Death Valley, if this game had been in Death Valley, I probably would have picked LSU this season. That's how good I think this LSU team is. But going to Bryant-Denny Stadium with this Alabama team that could be better than they were last year, and keep in mind they beat LSU 29-0 last year, that's scary to think about. So right now, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say that Alabama will beat LSU. I'm not saying LSU doesn't have a chance, but I'm going to say that LSU will probably fall by at least another 10-point deficit to Alabama.
I don't know. Joe Burrow being a senior, all his weapons coming back, I don't see it.
A lot of people want to believe that. As Eli mentioned, Alabama's owned LSU since 2012. I think the last time they lost to LSU was 2011 in that game of the century. LSU's got the talent. You're right. And I stress that the defense is there. Burrow there with his wide receivers. It's all there and in place for LSU to finally make a run and win the West, or maybe still get into the playoff without even going to the SEC title game, because we have seen teams do that. But I just don't see it happening this year. I think right now, in our prediction, our lone loss for LSU is at Alabama. And he's gone. And Michael Chunky hangs up. I guess maybe he didn't like that answer. But all right, DM, you're still on. I saw your comment there. Happy to have you, of course, as always. Would love to hear from you if you want to call in, but if not, we'll still answer your questions in the chat. Master Ego, back to your question. I did play football for probably about 3 or 4 years, and that's one of the things that I love. I love getting comments out there from people. They're like, I love how this guy is trying to tell us about football, and he's never played the game. Or no, but I've played it. I've actually coached it, younger teams. I've coached football. I know the game, and obviously I don't have to tell you guys that, but that's when people comment that, it's like, he has never played a down of football in his life. Well, I mean, I never saw them on the sidelines. So, but anyways, yeah, I did play it for about 3 or 4 years, and then stopped doing that. Obviously, not even close to being good enough to play college ball, but it was a blast when we played back in the day. It was a lot of fun. I'm gonna make sure to get to the chat here in a second. Hear this 1 second. All right, Ryan, we're going to put you on hold for 1 second, and then we're going to get to your call. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. All right, so we'll go through the rest of the chat real quick so we don't miss anything to kind of catch up, and then we're going to jump back to the calls and talk to Ryan. But let's see. Will Burrow, what do I think of SMU and Arkansas State? Will, I will tell you right now, I don't see Arkansas State winning that game. SMU gets in Shane Buechele from Texas, the transfer quarterback. Their defense is going to be one of the more experienced in the American Athletic Conference. And Arkansas State is breaking in a brand new quarterback in Logan Bonner. And while he does have experience, he's no Justice Hansen, at least not yet. So with SMU's defense, going to have to force maybe Alabama or Arkansas State to win this game on the ground with Marcel Murray. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. Conversely, I don't know if Arkansas State's defense is to the point to shut down what should be a much more explosive SMU passing attack and offense, period, led by Sonny Dykes. I don't know if they're there yet. So I have them falling to SMU despite the game being in Jonesboro. But nonetheless, that's a quality opponent traveling all the way to Jonesboro, to a Sun Belt school. Should be a fun one to kick off the season up in J-Town. So hopefully you and I will both be at that game. Comic Dude 45, glad to have you on the stream, but he's in the Dominican. Wow, all the way in the Dominican Republic. So yeah, don't worry about not calling in. But that's a heck of a trip. Hope you're having a blast down there. It's a pretty neat place. I've heard a lot of people. I have a lot of friends that have been there, and they tend to have a pretty decent time when they're there. So I saw a couple questions. Joe, just Joe. I am ready to talk Vegas lines for week 1 and the upset special. I am absolutely ready for those. So we will be we will be releasing those, of course, on August 28th, or week 1 spread picks coming out on August 28th. You can sign up for those expert picks again at thegridironexpert.com under the expert picks tab. Just another shameless plug there, but we got that pick, Joe, just Joe, you and I like to talk a lot about that. So that is absolutely going to be on our mind. And we'll have explanations for those once they've been released. So once they've been released and once we have our kind of predictions out there, when we can start talking about it. But we can't talk about it until they're out on August 28th. Micro Chunky, no worries. It was a good conversation. Thank you for calling in. As always, let's see. Joe saying that Virginia is still the best play against the spread on opening week, only giving 1 now. Utah moved from 5, favored by 5 to favored by 6.5. I'll still take it if in the Virginia game. So maybe I might throw that in there. I might throw that in my picks. I'm going to go through and do my research and release that out there. Release that out there on 28th again. So once again, sign up for the newsletter, sign up for the expert picks at thegridironexpert.com. DM Wyoming coach was the former North Dakota State head coach. Yes, Craig Bohl did great things at North Dakota State. And Kansas State also hiring Chris Kleiman from North Dakota State, both FCS champions, and that would be a great bowl game in Fargo at the Fargo Dome. Now that would be pretty amazing. That would be a lot of fun to see that. So yeah, bowl. So you can see Kansas State and Wyoming. I don't know if there were any Big 12 Mountain West bowl tie-ins, but to see former North Dakota State head coaches going up against it, that would be a lot of fun. So I love that. Mike Myrick, good to have you. Always glad when you're able to join the chat. Christopher Smith, glad to have you as well. Let's see. Yeah, I nail 70% on my feeder picks I talk about, and I will double the sub base by the following week. Let's hope. I mean, I bank on getting at least 70%, if not better. So James, our record last year, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but we were well over 75%. We were about 76%, I believe it was. That's the exact number, but I don't know the exact record number. So, but no, once again, a very solid year for us. And Ryan, I didn't forget about you. I was trying to catch up on the chat. You are on the line now, Ryan. Sorry to keep you waiting for so long.
Hey, it's fine. I wanted to ask you a question. I know you said that you don't like to talk about your own team when you're on these, but I do have a question about Arkansas.
Okay.
For you.
Yeah.
There was a post on Twitter about all the transfer portal, or about how many players that each team had in the transfer portal, and Arkansas came in number 1 at 23.
Yeah.
I think was not more than the second team. So I just wanted to get your opinion on what you think that's about, or if that's like a concern, or maybe that's like Chad Morris just like trying to turn over, if there's any kind of turnover with the new coaching staff.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I actually did see that post. Arkansas, like you said, if y'all couldn't hear him, leading the SEC in terms of players that are in the transfer portal. And I'll say this, Ryan, I think that one of the issues for Arkansas the past few years was under the Brett Bielema era, and this is from coming from me. This is a guy that watched Arkansas every game to that point, met with Brett Bielema multiple times, got some inside access during his time there, talked to players that played under him. He was not a guy that, and I don't know how to put this nicely, but did not push his players well enough. There was not much competition at Arkansas. Brett Bielema did not have a very disciplined team, did not, in my opinion, push his team to the limits. And I think that's something that Chad Morris is doing. We talked earlier about Tate Martell being expected to get handed everything at the quarterback position, expected to transfer to win the job at Ohio State, expected to win the job at Miami, and that's not the case. And I think a lot of these Arkansas players got to the point where they expected to not have to work as hard, or expected to get their starting jobs, or expected to play. expected things to be easy. And when Chad Morris stepped in and kind of changed the culture there, it was kind of a culture shock for them, for these players, and they wanted to get out. Part of it also comes down to just changing scheme. We all know Bielema's style of play was that kind of pound the rock, go up the gut. They're going to beat you and run it down your throat, and that's obviously not Morris's style of play. He's going to be a little more pass happy, wants to get a dual threat quarterback in there. So that is part of the thing, and that's something you're going to have with any head coaching turnover. Is just when the coach comes in, changes the style of play, people are going to transfer. But I think it's a mixture of just the culture that Morris is trying to implement, something that Razorback players in years past were not accustomed to and don't like, and also the fact that he's trying to change the scheme. And it's not just a slight change in scheme. It's drastic. That is going to take at least 3 years if the Razorbacks want to give him that long.
Yeah. There's also two sides to the transfer portal thing, because you guys have also brought in like 12 players from different places. So I just thought it was interesting because it's just such a large movement of players. But thanks for answering my question, man. Love the show. Love you.
Well, Ryan, I appreciate that, man. That means a lot coming from you. Thank you for being one of the more frequent commenters and supporters, man. So thank you for calling in, and definitely want to hear from you next time.
Yeah, sure.
Appreciate it, man. So that was Ryan talking about Arkansas and the transfer portal. So some crazy stuff going on up in Fayetteville. Hopefully they can turn things around. 2-10 last season, trying to just make the postseason this year, trying to get a 4-game swing. We did not have happening for the Razorbacks, going from 2-10 to 5-7. Not good enough to make a bowl game. And we got another call. We're going to put him on hold to go through the chat, but we'll give us 1 second.
Call from.
Ethan.
To accept, press 1. To send voicemail.
Let's see. And who do we have on the line right now?
My name's Ethan.
Ethan, all right, give us 1 second. We're going to put you on hold and get right back to you.
Got it.
All right, so we got Ethan on the line. I'm going to go through the rest of these chats here. Like I said, I told Ryan and everybody else that we make sure to do that. Let's see who else we got. Yeah, Eli, you gave me that comment a while back about how I show some Power 5 bias and not Group of 5 teams enough credit. And you're right. I mean, I'm not justifying that. I do tend to do that. To me, it comes down to which Group of 5 team we're talking about here. I know you're a Liberty guy, and I'm sorry. I know Liberty at 6-6 was not what you wanted to see. I know the game that you pointed out was the Rutgers game, thinking that Liberty would beat Rutgers. And while I do think Rutgers is still going to struggle this season, I do think they're going to be improved. They're a team that showed improvement down the stretch last year, were competitive in games against Penn State and Michigan State. I think they have a chance to beat Liberty here, who also is Hugh Freeze, I think, is taking a little bit of time off. He'll be back by the season opener against Syracuse, but still something to keep your eye on there. So maybe I don't give Group of 5 teams enough credit, but I just don't see some big-time teams like an Oklahoma. I don't see Oklahoma falling to Houston in week 1. They did a couple years ago. That was a different Houston team, a different coach at Houston, a neutral site. It was everything. Now it's in Norman, and this Oklahoma team is better than they were back in 2015, 2016. So I don't know. It's a bunch of factors that do go into it. We do pick Group of 5 on occasion, but just not as frequently. So you're right. But when it comes to spread picks, all bets are off. We probably pick more Group of 5 in those games when it comes down to facing off against Power 5. Ryan, who's my Heisman winner right now? It's a no-brainer for me. It's Trevor Lawrence. I think he's the best quarterback in the nation. I think Tua is right behind him. So you've got your top 2 quarterbacks. And that should be your top 2 in the Heisman voting as well, unless something crazy happens, unless one of them does not live up to the expectations. Maybe they get hurt. But if everything goes the way it should be Trevor Lawrence and Tua fighting for that number 1 spot in the Heisman votes. The entire season, we thought that Tua was going to win the Heisman, and then kind of dropped off a little bit, and Kyler Murray ended up sneaking in and winning it. So, but right now I'm going to stick with Trevor Lawrence to win that. Going through the rest here, and we didn't forget about Ethan on the line. Ethan, if you're still with us, give us 1 second. We'll be right with you. Ryan, I'm sorry it hasn't been working. We will definitely try to get you back on the line here in a second. I guess it's the phone lines are busy, but we definitely want to get you on the line, Ryan, if at all possible. Joe just making some more comments about the spread picks. Of course, poking a little fun there. Legalized Quack, all I do is watch and read college football. Man, you and me both. You and me both. I mean, this is practically my life. So I definitely that's kind of pretty much all I do. When Saturdays roll around and in the fall, I don't want to be disturbed. I can tell you that. Dark horse Heisman candidates. Someone said Adrian Martinez. I mentioned Benjamin earlier. Jonathan Taylor isn't necessarily a Heisman dark horse, but is a guy that wasn't given enough attention last year. Hopefully direction and attention will be put back on him this year, as Wisconsin should improve after a disappointing 2018. And I think we're fairly caught up on the chat right now. We're going to get to Ethan on the phones right now. Let me see if he's still there. And I don't know. Don't know what happened. Maybe something got screwed up there. We got another call here. We'll get a call back here in a second. So, back to the phone lines. It's open for anybody that wants to call. I think we had an issue with Ethan a second ago. Hopefully he'll give us a call back, or anybody else that wants to try to get on the line here. But going to the rest of the chat. Husker D, good to have you. I'm here to F your wife. Good to have you as well. One of the popular commenters that I've got, one of the best supporters that we've got right now on the Gridiron Expert. So always appreciate that. And Ben Wyndham, Kyle Trask for Heisman. First off, good to see you, Ben. Kyle Trask, no, sir, not for Heisman, but that would be something, wouldn't it? Here we go. That was a call from South Carolina. I think this is going to be Ethan.
Ethan.
There we go. Ethan, are you with us?
Yes.
All right, man. Sorry we lost you for a second. How's it going?
Oh, it's good. I had the phone down. I was going to get some peanut butter, so that happened. Okay, so what I want to talk about is I think people are really underestimating Missouri this year. I mean, you look at their schedule, I think they have a lot of games they can come away with. I think if Georgia loses to Auburn, let's say Georgia loses to Florida, because I think Florida has a guaranteed loss to LSU, and I think they will lose to South Carolina. So I think Missouri is basically the front runner, in my opinion. Even though not talent-wise, but I just think how they drew out of the West. They got Mississippi and Arkansas, two teams that they can easily beat. So, I mean, that's just what I think. I think Missouri has a shot at the East. I think they can do it this year.
Wow, yeah. So that's bold for those of you guys that are listening or couldn't hear Ethan saying that Missouri is the front runner in the SEC East. Not Georgia, not Florida, but Missouri. Because he's got Georgia maybe falling to Auburn, like we predicted, maybe to Florida falling to LSU and South Carolina. Both very good points. Very, very good points. And I exactly do see where you're coming from. There's a very good chance that Missouri could be, I don't have the schedule in front of me, but 7 or 8-0 going into that Georgia game. I believe that's the 9th game of the season, the 8th game of the season. So that's extremely possible. I just don't. No, it's all good. I was going to say, I just don't see Georgia dropping 2 regular season games. Now, I will say this. Last year, Missouri, with Drew Lock and the guys that they had, gave Georgia a fight for the whole 4 quarters. I think Georgia won that game by 14. But still, Missouri was giving them a fight the entire way through. And if that game was in Columbia this year, I could very well see Missouri maybe pulling off that big-time upset, especially with it being, I would predict, a night game, crazy crowd. That environment results in a Missouri win. The talent, like you said, is there. Kelly Bryant coming in, Roundtree at running back, a very, very experienced crew of wide receivers, arguably the best tight end in the SEC. And then, like I said in our predictions over and over, I think this is the best defense that Barry Odom has had going into his, I think, 4th year now with the Tigers. So they've got it. The only problem is, of course, for Missouri, is their bowl ban. That should get overturned. I can't remember who I was explaining it to. Someone commented, I think it was Street Fair, if he jumps on the line, but I would explain to him why the NCAA is so corrupt, because Missouri does not deserve its bowl ban. It should not be there. And I would hate hate to see your prediction come true at 11-1 or winning the SEC East and not see Missouri get a chance to play for a spot in the college football playoff or a major New Year's Six bowl game. That would really hurt.
Because you're looking on Florida's schedule. I really think Florida doesn't really have a shot at the East. I think if they could drop a game to Georgia, maybe Georgia. I really think that they'll lose to South Carolina. A lot of people don't like it, but I think that's going to be a little trap game. I think South Carolina is going to be a little surprised. That was big for my pick. South Carolina's played them good the past 2 years, so I think they'll drop one right there, and I think they'll lose to LSU. I really like Auburn, and then Missouri gets Florida at home. Towards the end of the year, so if Missouri's on pace to win the East, then maybe they could easily beat Florida at home.
No, absolutely. And Missouri, as many people know, and many people have told me, Missouri has Florida's number. They've beaten them the past couple of years, or has given them fights past couple of years, including that 21-point win in the Swamp last year. So that was a pretty big shocker. And you're right. I personally have Florida falling to South Carolina. I think that's a huge trap game. Kind of sandwiched in there, I think either after the Georgia game or right before the Georgia game, one of the two. And with it being at Williams-Brice Stadium and the fact that South Carolina was winning by 17 points last year and ended up losing that game by 4, I think South Carolina's due for a win against the Gators, and I think it comes this year. So I don't think Florida wins it because I don't think they're quite there yet to beat Georgia. I don't think they'll beat South Carolina. And like you said, I think they'll fall to LSU on the road. So 9-3 – to me, feels like a lock, almost a guaranteed lock for Florida, unless they just surprise the heck out of us. But you're right. Missouri is the team that could very well contend for the number 2 spot in the SEC East.
You were talking about on that South Carolina loss. I mean, I'm a Carolina fan. I don't know if that happened, though. That was just crazy. They would just score points in the span of 10 minutes out of nowhere. But I think it's more possible for – I think Missouri does get second in the East. I think that's, for me, guaranteed. I just don't know if Georgia will drop any games because Georgia really has more to play for than Missouri because they can go to the postseason. Missouri, all they want to do is spoil Georgia's year or something like that. And I don't think I just don't see Georgia losing 2 SEC games at all.
Right, and neither do I. We have Georgia sitting at 11-1 right now. The lone loss coming to Auburn. And you're right, Georgia certainly has way more to play for. Not only is Georgia just trying to get, every team's goal is to get to the postseason, but Georgia has the potential to get to the college football playoff and play for a national championship. So that is what they're going to be fighting for. And Missouri, until they know, they're going to try to win every game, as any team should, but in the back of their minds, it's going to hurt and to know whether or not they can go bowling or not. And that decision might not be made until the 3rd or 4th week of the season. So that's a shame, and I want to see Missouri go bowling, especially if they can win anywhere between 9 to 11 games. I just don't know if that's going to be possible. That the win total is possible, but is the postseason possible? But I like the bold prediction, Ethan, saying that Missouri pretty much a lock to the number 2 spot in the SEC East, and maybe could potentially be the front runner if Georgia can just slip up not once but twice in the regular season.
Yeah, man. Thanks for letting me come on the show. And also, I just want to say real fast, the page on the goal line, well, that's me. I just wanted to call in. I love you. I love all everything you're doing to the channel, by the way.
Well, man, I appreciate that, and you've got some good stuff over on your page too. So keep it up, and thank you for calling in.
Got it. Go UTEP.
And we got another UTEP homer on the line. So thank you, Ethan, for calling in over at On the Goal Line. Let's see what else we've got in the chat. DM, so you checked. Unfortunately, no bowl game between Mountain West teams and Big 12 teams possible. Maybe they can work towards that. I know people, money-wise, that's the thing. The NCAA, they care about this money. They care about all the money that bowl games can bring in, that revenue, that TV revenue. And a Mountain West team going up against a Big 12 team, it isn't just going to bring in enough money. That's unfortunate. But I do think, DM, to continue on the North Dakota State trend, I think it would be brilliant to have a bowl game at the Fargo Dome. Now, I'm not saying you got to have a big, New Year's Six bowl game there, but up in the northern part of the country, take a Mountain West team and have them face off against I don't know, Conference USA or American Athletic, whatever the tie-ins are. But why not have a game at the Fargo Dome? That would more exposure for North Dakota State. Just playing at an FCS opponent. I don't think we have any bowl games that are held at FCS schools. And many people would say, well, it's because they're smaller stadiums, but the Fargo Dome, one of the nicer stadiums, I believe, in the FCS. So that would be a lot of fun to see a postseason game being played there. A lot of potential, a lot of money, great exposure for the state, for the team, and would just be unique. So I don't know if that's ever going to be in the possibility or in the works, but that would be something to keep an eye on and would be a lot of fun to see. And Eli, very good point that North Dakota State needs to move up to the Power 5. Would love to see that. The Bison taking so much care of not just their opponents of the FCS, but have come over into the FBS and taking care of business. I mean, they've beaten Kansas State. They beat Iowa a few years ago when the Hawkeyes were number 13 in the country. I think they beat Minnesota a few years back. We did a video right before we did predictions back in May highlighting some of the bigger FCS schools. I think we had North Dakota State, James Madison, Eastern Washington, and then we highlighted their records against Power 5 opponents, some of the bigger wins in their history, how many national titles they have in the FCS, and North Dakota State by far led the way. So even though they lost Craig Bowl a few years ago, and even though they lost Chris Kleiman now to Kansas State, I expect them to continue that success across the board. And in the FCS, they're still a national title contender in the FCS. So I can't wait to see that. Will, I did not overlook your comment. I see it's all caps, so I can see you're trying to emphasize it. Knowing you, I know that's exactly what you're doing. Big-time Texas fan. Will, love you, man. Do you think Texas has a chance to make it to the college football playoffs if they beat Oklahoma this year? Well, Will, here's the thing. Yes, but the problem is I've already got Texas beating Oklahoma. I've got Texas beating Oklahoma again in the regular season, much like the Longhorns did last year. The problem for Texas is that I had them losing at home to LSU, and that's a game that could very well win. And then I had them later losing in a major trap game, in my opinion, at Iowa State. But I'll tell you this, Will. If Texas loses or Texas beats LSU and then beats Oklahoma, and their lone loss is to Iowa State, a good Iowa State team, or you can flip the script, still beat Oklahoma, beat Iowa State, lose to LSU. If Texas is 11-1 going into the Big 12 championship game, because they will be in the Big 12 championship game if they finish, I think, 10-2 or 11-1, then yes, they have a very good chance at making the college football playoff. In 1 second, Will, we're going to take this call and put them on hold for 1 second. Hey, who do we have on the line right now?
Evan.
Evan, 1 second, man. We're going to put you on hold and get right back to you.
All right.
So, Will, to continue what I was saying, yes, they are playoff contenders. They are playoff contenders if they can finish 11-1. But if they're a two-loss team, even if they beat Oklahoma again in the Big 12 championship game, I don't see the committee putting in an 11-2 Texas team. That would be a scenario. Now that I think about it, could you imagine the number 4 spot coming down to an 11-2 Texas team and an 11-2 Georgia team? An 11-2 Texas that won the Big 12 versus an 11-2 Georgia that lost in the SEC championship. That would be some controversy in the college football playoff and something that on Selection Sunday they would have to figure out. But a 2-loss Texas team, in my opinion, is not going to get into the playoff. But 11-1, absolutely. They have many opportunities to get some big-time resume-boosting wins. LSU, Oklahoma, Iowa State, Oklahoma potentially again in the Big 12 championship game. But Texas is back. I will say that. Texas is back. And if Tom Herman leads the Longhorns to anything less than 9 wins, and 9 wins would be a disappointment, then I'm going to go on a limb and say he's on the hot seat going into 2020 because Texas expects to be competing for national titles. He didn't do it in year 1. He made a major step forward in year 2, winning the Sugar Bowl. In this year, when they're expecting to maybe make the playoff or win the Big 12, if he takes a tiny step back, 2020 is going to be a huge make-or-break year. And Texas has a lot of talent this year, so it's going to be very, very interesting. Yeah, and their comment here from I'm here. I was going to start calling him. I was going to say I'm here because we don't want to drop the F-bomb on the stream. We don't want to do that. So, but I'm here saying it would depend on where Texas is ranked when they went 11-2 versus where Georgia was ranked when they're 11-2. That would be, yes, that's a huge, that's what I'll do. That would be a huge kind of difference maker there to a committee to decide can we justify dropping Texas this far or moving them up this far? And same thing for Georgia. So rankings do matter, despite what a lot of people out there will say. All right, Master Ego, definitely. Let's leave a like. So appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yeah, leave a like. Just go out, hit the like button. That boosts our analytics, helps us out a lot on these videos. So make sure you go check that out. Hit the like button really quick. It does a lot for us here on the channel. So I like that we're talking a little bit about Michigan State. And don't worry, we will not forget about our caller. We'll get right back to that. Saif Al-Shamari, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I really think Michigan State is a sleeper in the Big Ten. If Lewerke plays the same as he did in 2017 and 2018, they have a legitimate shot to win the Big Ten. And Legalized Quack, very good point that they got so unlucky with injuries. I mean, Lewerke didn't live up to the expectations last year. He took a major step back in 2018. They were bombarded with injuries, had an ugly bowl loss to Oregon, 7-6. And I think it was like the Netflix Bowl or something like that. Redbox Bowl, I think that's what it was. So, yeah, they were hit with a bunch of injuries. And Mark D'Antonio, you guys all know this, is a guy like Gary Patterson, is a guy that you can never count out in college football. Never count out Mark D'Antonio in a job that he can do. So I'm really prepared to say that, yeah, they are a legitimate sleeper. Problem is they have to go, I think, to Michigan. They have to go to Ohio State, if I'm not mistaken. But they host Penn State, I think. I mean, I don't have the schedule in front of me, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works. So they get a couple of those wins to go their way. Michigan State should take a jump back in the right direction, winning 9 to 10 games. If they beat Michigan or Ohio State, or absolutely both, yeah, they're a sleeper and could win the Big Ten. And Cyclone Mitch is saying that they should start Lombardi. Rocky Lombardi played better than Lewerke in the sparing time that he had last year, but I still think Lewerke has the most experience. And like Saif was saying, if he gets back to his 2017 form, it's going to be just fine. And I'm going to put the number back out in the chat real quick before we take our caller. Let me fix that. I've got it listed here. For those of you that are still looking for it, we're about to take a call. But the number to call in, 901-297-4545. All right, who do we have on the line with us? Evan, how's it going, man?
Good. How you going?
I'm doing great, man. What's on your mind?
I was talking about Carolina, what they could have this year.
What about South Carolina now?
This year, I think Jake Bentley's going to run for Heisman. He's going to have at least over 4,000 passing yards. Carolina, great team last year. They're improving a lot from Will Muschamp. Got a lot of good 4 stars.
Yeah. Yeah, well, okay, look, so South Carolina, man, I tell you what, the problem with the Gamecocks, and I said it, if you go back and watch our predictions for South Carolina, and really you watch any other prediction that we've done, they have the talent to make a run and win 8-9 games. It's just, for me, it's that schedule for the Gamecocks. So you're right, I think Jake Bentley is one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. I think he's one of the most experienced quarterbacks in the SEC. He has plenty of returning talent offensively, both in the running game, both at the wide receiver position, at tight end. And like I said with Missouri earlier, I think that they have the best defense that what Will Muschamp has had during his time at South Carolina. But when you're looking at their schedule, you know, they've got Clemson and Alabama and Georgia and Florida. It's just a very difficult schedule for them this year that under normal circumstances, this South Carolina team could very well win 9 games. But I think this year we only have them winning 7.
Yeah.
But you're right. Recruiting trail-wise, the talent that they bring in, it's there. This is one of Will Muschamp's best team yet, maybe his best team yet. It's just a matter of, you know, can they take advantage of it? Maybe shock some people. They host Alabama. So maybe they can, you know, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to go. I'm sorry?
Last time they faced them, they won, but they had good players that year.
Right, you're right. Well, that was way back in 2010. So yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to wait and find out. But I'm excited to watch South Carolina this year. I want to see Will Muschamp kind of, surprise everybody. I think if he won 8 games, that'd be phenomenal. We've got him winning 7. If he wins 8, that's phenomenal in my opinion, but don't think he's going to be able to get there. So, Ethan, thank you for calling, man. We appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, so that was Ethan talking some South Carolina football. Of course, a team that very similar to A&M, Texas A&M, that we have, I think, struggling in 2019 just because of the schedule. The talent for A&M and South Carolina is there. Of course, as the schedule would have it, they both have to face each other. The talent's there. Schedule doesn't benefit them in any ways. That's the issue. It's going to be very interesting. And South Carolina, Cyclone Mitch really got shut out by Virginia. Well, I think that showed that Virginia was bad, that they were the real deal. They beat South Carolina 28-0. It wasn't like 10-0. Beat them 28. And then now they're going to return Bryce Perkins and one of the better defenses in the ACC. We're getting a call from all the way from Utah. Let's see who we got. Perfect. If I heard that correctly, this is Master Ego. Is that right?
Yeah, buddy.
All right, man. Good to hear from you. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome, man. Always glad to hear from you.
Yeah. Hey, so I was thinking about the Big 12. I'm thinking about, how they haven't expanded. What are your thoughts on if they need to expand? And if so, because I'm a big BYU fan. But the thing is, though, there's been controversy of why they shouldn't be in a Power 5 conference because of their religious beliefs and stuff like that. But what are your things? What are your thoughts on that? And if so, who do you think should be into the Big 12 if they should expand?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I'll go out there and say that if you go all the way back, obviously a lot of us on this stream were not around then, but back into the 1980s, you had the Southwest Conference, and that included the likes of Arkansas and Texas, Baylor, Rice, SMU, guys like that. That was really good. I thought that was a very solid conference, and even when that kind of dissolved and a lot of those teams kind of went their separate ways, you still had a very good Big 12 with Texas A&M, Nebraska, Colorado, Missouri, and now a lot of those guys have left to go to the Pac-12 or the Big 10 or the SEC, whatever. And that's kind of my issue here is the Big 12 is called the Big 12, and yet they only have 10 teams in it,
Right.
and that's
Big 10 has 14.
Right, and the Big 10 has 14. Right, so a lot of these conference names don't make any sense. I think the Pac-12 is the only one that makes actual sense, but the Big 12 I think they're in a bit of a crisis right now, and Cyclone Mitch kind of took the words out of my mouth there that Bob Bowlesby is a terrible commissioner, and that has been shown. The only good thing that he has done is the fact that the Big 12 implemented a title game recently, which benefited their playoff hopes, because as we remember back in 2014, the likes of TCU and Baylor were both left out of the playoff because they didn't have a conference title game to benefit them. But to get to your question about whether they should expand, I said they're in a bit of a crisis because I think they either just need to dissolve completely and all the teams need to go somewhere else, join another conference, or they do. And that's 10 teams that you would have to send out to other conferences. And quite frankly, that's a little too much. So the other alternative is to expand. Big 12's talked about doing expansions now for probably about the past 3 or 4 years, and there hasn't been a single move that's been made. That's the issue. Now, I'm a guy that when you look to expand a conference, I look to do it relatively geographically. What makes sense? So bringing in a team, like I know you said you're a BYU guy, bringing in a team all the way from BYU, from Utah, geographically wouldn't make sense. And like you said, it might not even work because of their religious beliefs. West Virginia is absolutely an outlier. That's another reason that I don't think they should even be in the Big 12. That's one of the reasons that, they were back, the Big East, and then they went over to the Big 12, but it just doesn't make any sense. I think Nebraska should have stayed, and West Virginia could have joined the ACC or stayed in the American Athletic. I don't know, but there have been rumors that they've talked about bringing in like a Boise State, which, of course, once again, if you're staying on the geographic part, doesn't make any sense. But Boise is a team that I think should really step up and I think join a Power 5 conference. They're a team that has proved that they can compete with Power 5 schools, as we've seen not only in the regular season time and time again, but in big-time bowl games like Fiesta Bowls and even back when they played in like when TCU was really good, back when Boise was part of the WAC and TCU was still in the Mountain West. So, that's always an alternative to bring in Boise State. And then there were people talking about bringing in smaller schools. Like someone said once about Arkansas State making a jump to the Big 12. And Will Burrow here is telling us there that the Big 12 almost expanded with Arkansas State and Houston. And that's a very good point, that Houston, being in the state of Texas, where like I think half of the Big 12 is made up, bringing in another team like that wouldn't be a bad idea. So to answer your question, they should do it. Big 12 needs to expand. But it takes a lot longer for the expansion to happen than we want it to. We think it should be a fairly easy change, fairly easy shift. And whenever you hear a change about expansion, it usually takes at least a year or two to do it. So, but it does need to happen because I think the Big 12 is definitely in a bit of a crisis right now.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean,
so with BYU, do you think that they should be into Power 5? Or do you think they're in a bad spot to be independent? Should they go back to a conference, the G5 conference?
Yeah, so obviously I'm not familiar with BYU's any religious beliefs that BYU entails there. But if say you were going to take that out of it, take religion out of it, I think that it would be a good idea for BYU to move to a actual conference. I'm not opposed to independence. I know a lot of people hate on Notre Dame because they're not in a conference in football. I think some schools it benefits them. I mean, poor UConn right now is having to become an independent next year because they got booted out of the American Athletic. But as for BYU, they've shown, kind of like I said with Boise State, that they can compete with Power 5 opponents. Maybe not as consistently as Boise State has, but last year they beat Arizona and Wisconsin. They have faced off against solid opponents out of the SEC. They got Tennessee this year. They faced LSU a few years back. And when they've made a decent bowl game, they show that they can win as well. I don't think –
Man, the next few years, their BYU schedule is even like tougher.
Yeah, well, that's scary to think about for them, man. I mean, I think that BYU isn't to the point where they could compete at a high level for like a conference championship in a Power 5 conference. I mean, certainly not the SEC, Big Ten. Geographically, Pac-12 would be most logical for them. And, I mean, maybe you can make a case for them. I think they could very well be a consistent bowl team in the Pac-12, winning at least 6 games every year, if not more. But I think that would be the best fit for them. Whether or not they're ready at that point, for them, you have to think about, does BYU just want to cut it good and say, okay, bowl games are fine with us, or do they want to compete for a conference title? And I don't think they're to the point where they can do that quite yet. Their independent schedule, like you said, is getting tougher. There's no conference games, obviously, so their Power 5 opponents that they're scheduling this year and years down the road is good. It gets them more exposure, gets them the opportunity to get some more big-time wins. But the rest of their schedule, like you saw in our predictions this year, are mostly against group of 5 opponents, and that really benefits them and kind of boosts that record to win 7 to 9 games every single year.
Yeah. Awesome. Hey, thanks for your time. You're doing an awesome job on your channel, so keep it up, buddy.
Hey, man, I appreciate that. Thank you for calling in, man.
Awesome show.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so that was Master Ego, big BYU fan, one of our better subscribers and commenters and supporters here at the Gridiron Expert as well. So once again, thank you for calling in. Going to go through the chat a few more times as we've only got about 15, 20 minutes left here. I said we cut it off around an hour and a half, so we still got time for a few more calls. Yes, so a very good point by Saif Al-Shamari there. Once again, hope I'm pronouncing that name right. Oklahoma State got left out of the BCS National Championship 8 years ago, and that was controversy before we even had college football playoff controversy. The fact that the Cowboys got left out of the national championship, which at the time under the BCS system was just the number 1, number 2 team in the country, got left out in favor of LSU, who was a lot going undefeated, and Alabama, who didn't win the SEC, didn't play for the SEC championship. Lone loss was to LSU, game of the century, and they got in the championship. And they got the revenge over LSU, winning 21-0. Many people thought Oklahoma State should have gotten in, but that loss to Iowa State at the end of the season, that's what killed them. That is what killed them. And Iowa State was not a nationally ranked team. They were not. They were a bowl team, a round bowl team at that point, but not anywhere near as competitive as LSU or Alabama. So that was very, very controversial. But yeah, one of the more shocking moments, I think, of the BCS era. Cyclone Mitch, the Big 12, our conference is embarrassing. Well, you said it, not me. I'm not. You said it. I did not say it here. But look, people criticize every single conference. SEC is one of the ones that gets criticized the most. People saying the SEC is really not that good. You just have a couple of good teams that boost you. Like Alabama's the one that makes you look so good because they win all the time. Georgia makes you look all good because they win all the time or have recently. LSU, that's not the question. And then you got people out there that think that bowl games are what determine how good a conference is. Oh, the SEC or Big 12 for that matter went 1-7 in their bowl games. They are a horrible conference. Not necessarily. But the Big 12, though, really only has a handful of contenders. I would say this year half of the teams are contenders, but you have to take the word contenders and define it as you want. Oklahoma, Texas, and Iowa State are legitimate contenders. The top 3 teams in the Big 12 that can make a run at the title. And then you've got a team like TCU or Baylor that can make a dark horse run. Not as big as a contender as the other 3, but can still make a chance and a run at the title. We got a call from Pennsylvania. Let's take a call real quick. All right, if I heard that correctly, this is Eli. Am I right?
Yes, it is.
All right, Eli, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you for calling in.
Yeah. So I was actually calling to talk about the American Athletic Conference. Like everyone always wanted to talk about Power 5, so I kind of love to talk about Group of 5 some more.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. Hey, we cover all college football, so let's do it.
Yeah. So, anyways, I think the American Athletic, first of all, I don't even think it's really Group of 5 caliber. I think it should be more of a power conference, if we're being honest. Especially look at the top teams.
Right. No, and if y'all have watched our American Athletic Conference recap where we predicted all the teams, I mentioned that they want to be considered a power conference and maybe make it to Power 6, and I would agree with that. Just because we mentioned earlier about the success that teams like Boise has had against Power 5 opponents, but look at the entirety of the American Athletic. UCF's up there. Cincinnati is up there, has been good in years past, will be good again this year. And then teams like Memphis and Houston that continue every year to be contenders and either beat Power 5 teams or give them a really good run for their money.
I mean, the Cincinnati versus UCF game is going to be awesome.
You think like UCF this year?
Yeah, UCF versus Cincinnati when they play each other, that's going to be that game's going to be lit.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. No, if that is the conference championship game, which we have predicted, Central Florida and Houston, you can expect a shootout in that game, as the past 2 conference championship games have been in the American. But that one will be so much fun. Houston's going to have – I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Houston will have the best offense in the American Athletic this season, statistically. UCF we have pegged as the best record. But I think Houston's going to have that best offense with Holgorsen back as head coach, Derek King at quarterback, and then all those wide receivers that he's going to be throwing to. I think Houston's going to be pretty dominant on the offensive side of the ball.
Only they had a good defense.
Yeah, if only they had a good defense. You're right. I mean, unfortunately, Houston, four starters back, and in years past has not been known for having a solid defense. I'll give them credit. They weren't too bad when Tom Herman was there.
Yeah, but I mean, when you think about it, I mean, Houston, UCF, and Cincinnati are all teams that should be ranked as I mean, Cincinnati, I think, hosting UCF. I actually have them predicted to win that one, and I think Cincinnati will. I think Houston will be the only team that beats Cincinnati all year, and yeah, I think they could beat Ohio State. I'm looking at Cincinnati. I'm pretty high on them.
Yeah, well, Cincinnati, I'm with you. I actually do have Cincinnati beating Central Florida, so that I have that happening. But I think it was you that I responded to. It was either you or maybe it was Master Ego. Someone commented the other day about it, and I said, if you look at the two schedules, UCF schedule is just much more favorable. And I don't have the schedule in front of me, but I think Cincinnati hosts UCF, which I have them at down as a win. I do think they will give Ohio State a good test for at least a half, maybe 3/4. And I love that the fact that Luke Fickell is, coming back to Columbus. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. But I think Cincinnati has to go to Houston and go to Memphis. So they draw some of the top two teams out of the West, that other division. So I don't know if they're to the point where they can jump UCF yet, even head to head.
I mean, I think they can beat Memphis and South Florida on the road. So, Houston, I think Houston's the one game they'll drop. So in that case, just have them at 7-1 with UCF, and they get in over on the tiebreaker.
Yeah, they're both tied. That would definitely go to Cincinnati, and I really kind of want to see. I kind of want to see Cincinnati beat them. I mean, not that I hate UCF or have anything against the Knights, but they've won the past 2 seasons, and I think it would be great to see a young Cincinnati team. I should add, Desmond Ritter is a real deal at quarterback and a very young one at that. Michael Warren at running back, and the defense that was very, very solid last year, and scary to think about they can be even better. And under Luke Fickell again this season. So I would love to see them run 11-1 and have them face off against Houston, and then maybe see Cincinnati in a New Year's Six bowl game playing someone like, I don't know, Notre Dame or an SEC opponent. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and this brings up another point. I know the weekend for the American Athletic Conference that they don't have much depth, and that they got scrub teams in there, and I think UConn losing them, at least from a football perspective, is addition by subtraction. I know it's a huge loss affair for the basketball, especially women, but for football, yeah, I feel like you're thinking good riddance.
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, it's crazy to think that back in 2010, UConn was playing in a BCS bowl game. They went to the Fiesta Bowl and lost to Oklahoma. That's crazy. Yeah. It's amazing to see how quickly. I mean, because I would say 9 to 10 years is relatively quick for a team to just fall off the rails. And people have bad years, but UConn has had a bad year just about every year since that. So yeah, I think for a lot of that people, it is kind of like good riddance. But I think people learn to appreciate it more when it's gone. I think they're staying as an independent. They're not cutting the football program, so the football program will still be around. But if they were to let it go completely, I think you would see some major backlash, much like we saw a couple of years ago with UAB. They cut the UAB football program because they weren't that good. People seemed to not care about it, and as soon as they cut it, there was this huge uproar, and they brought it back. And UAB's been doing great over in the Conference USA.
Yeah, I mean, this was a question I have. If you're going to replace them, would you look for more all-around sports, or would you look more specifically for football? Let's say you put App State, who's really bad at pretty much everything except for football. What would your thoughts be on maybe putting a team like App State there?
And in terms of or repeat that question. So letting go of certain athletics.
Well, since UConn's leaving, so say you were the commissioner and you wanted to bring in someone to replace them, would you bring in I guess what I'm saying is, would you focus more on a team that's really good at football, or would you look for more all-around sports ability? Right.
Okay, I see what you're saying now. Okay, yeah. That's a great question. I think if you're a commissioner of a conference, football obviously takes, the top step. That is the priority, I think, for a lot of people to realize that that's what people care about the most. But that commissioner has to realize himself that I'm not just the commissioner of the, American Athletic Football. I'm the commissioner of the entire conference. So from a perspective, I would try to look for somebody that can bring me revenue and viewership and just benefit our league across the board, not just in one aspect. So if you have a football program, but the rest of your sports are horrible, then I don't know if I would go that route. Now you can't be biased when it comes down to that. Some programs also don't have certain sports. They don't have baseball. Maybe they don't have basketball. Maybe they don't have track and field, whatever. But I don't think I would solely focus on football. If I was a commissioner, I think I'd have to look across the board and try to bring someone in that can benefit us across the board at every sport.
Yeah, now, I know I'm going to seem very biased by this, but I actually think Liberty would be a really good addition. I mean, look at how good our basketball team has gotten in. I don't know if it's college baseball much, but our baseball team also did really well last year too. So I think football has a lot. I mean, we're not quite there yet. We've got a lot of potential. So I think we're already really good at baseball and basketball.
Yeah, you're referring to Liberty, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, made the NCAA tournament last year. I think y'all beat Mississippi State. Is that right?
Yeah, we beat them in the tournament. And I mean, we were playing the Atlantic Sun, but like the team which is a very top-heavy conference, but the team that we beat, Lipscomb, ended up making it to the NIT finals. Like they were really good too. It was a classic game.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with that, and I agree that your football program is going in the right direction. Hiring Hugh Freeze was a huge boost for them. The offense is there this year. Defense, like you said, still in the works. The team period is still in the works. But if Hugh Freeze wants to stick around, if he's going to stay for a year or two, or maybe even longer, some of these coaches use this as a stepping stool to go to a better program. But if he sticks around, Liberty can be a consistent bowl team. And if they show that they were dominant in the FCS last year, first year in the FBS, 6-6. If they continue to go bowling, you could see them make a jump to a bigger conference instead of being an independent, very much sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I guess one thing that could be a potential, downside is the fact that our political beliefs, our religious, especially our political beliefs, are so much different than almost all other academic institutions. With Jerry Falwell Jr. being extremely supportive of Trump, and that we're like kind of one of the most conservative places in the country.
Well, sure. I mean. Politics is something that other people have to deal with. Something that other, when I'm sitting here talking football, I'm not a commissioner, obviously, but I try not to would talk politics that much. You try not to dive into it. Maybe the commissioners and the higher ups have to worry about that, religious beliefs or political beliefs, and obviously if the chancellor or the head coach or whatever is more vocal about their political beliefs than others, that could spell trouble for some, but obviously something that I think a lot of people shouldn't talk much about when the goal is just to talk sports and football,
Yeah, I just really want to hire up that, especially as I'm so good at football. That's probably something that would be just inevitable to come up.
Right. No, and it definitely could. And that's just something that I think a bridge you'd have to cross when you get there and see how that all plays out. But it's definitely something that you have to keep in the back of your mind and be aware that could be a potential thing that could cause a problem. Well, Eli, man, I appreciate you coming on the show, man. Always good hearing from you. And once again, thank you for all the comments and the support, man.
Thanks for taking my call.
Hey, you got it, man.
Bye.
All right, so that was Eli, of course, one of the better supporters we've got out here as well. So thank you for calling, Eli. I'm going to hit a couple of these comments in the chat real quick before we wrap things up. Master Ego, what positions did I play in football? So I would play. We had a very small team, very, very small team. So I played multiple positions, both sides of the ball. So I was the backup QB, which is nothing to be proud about. But when I started, when I was actually out there starting, I played a little bit at fullback and a little bit at defensive tackle, defensive end. So believe it or not, I was a little heavier back when a couple years ago, believe it or not. So they kind of put me at some of the larger positions, but it was a blast, man. I mean, it was a lot of fun playing back then. I wish I could go back and do it some more. Like I said, wasn't obviously good enough to play any college ball, but I played multiple sports on top of that. But playing football is a lot of fun. So played both ways, defense and offense, mostly fullback and defensive tackle / defensive end, wherever they needed me. So, but those times were a blast. Our last team that we had went undefeated. So that was a very good way to end our career. So, or in my career at least. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, Lamar Stevens, I see you, man. Kind of bad timing for a call-in show. Everyone's still at work, right? Yeah, it is. Actually, but I will say this. we got more calls today and more views than I thought we were going to get for coming on at a 12:30 show. This was just the best time we could do it. Like I mentioned, we're moving into school on Saturdays. I wanted to get one in before we moved away for a while. So we were obviously running out of time. We have 2 prediction videos left to get out to you guys tomorrow and Friday. And we have some big plans tonight that we've got to take care of. So this was the best time to do it. And I appreciate everybody jumping on at 12:30 in the afternoon for a live call-in show. So thank you for that. Taking the last few comments here. Cyclone Mitch, I love this question. What is my opinion on not being motivated in bowl games? And I will tell you this. I think that is the stupidest excuse any team could ever give or any fan could ever give for failing in a bowl game. I think that is the stupidest thing anybody could ever say, that we lost that bowl game because they weren't motivated or our team was not motivated. I don't care how your season ended. I think Georgia was one of the people that people try to use that example for. Like, Georgia lost in heartbreaking fashion in the SEC title game. They were a touchdown away, a play away from making it and making the college football playoff. But instead, they had to go to the Sugar Bowl, and they lost to Texas 28-21 in a game that was much worse than the score indicated. They just weren't motivated because they were so down on themselves and so hurt after missing out on the playoff. Well, that's just the biggest load of bullcrap that you could ever tell anybody, because teams that make a bowl game, a national bowl game, you're on national television in a New Year's Six bowl game. This is just, I'm using Georgia as an example. I don't care if it's the AutoZone Liberty Bowl or if it's the New Mexico Bowl or I don't care what bowl it is. Teams should always be motivated because you are on national TV. You have a chance to make history, a chance to add a win, for a chance to maybe finish a career with a victory for some players, a chance to make a statement against another Power 5 opponent, a chance to maybe get back on the recruiting trail. You beat a team on national TV well. It looks good for recruits. So many positives come out of the postseason that to say that you weren't motivated to play in it is the stupidest thing. And in my opinion, it is, if that's going to be your mindset, then you shouldn't play at all. If that is going to be your mindset and your excuse, then you shouldn't play at all. That's my opinion. So great question, Mitch. It's one of those topics for me that gets me fired up because I think it's so stupid. I think it's ridiculous. Texas was the better team last year against Georgia. Plain and simple. I mean, that's it. And then maybe some people like to look at previous Sugar Bowls as well, delegating SEC teams there. Alabama a few years back losing to Oklahoma. They didn't make the national title. That was a shock. They weren't motivated to beat Oklahoma. And we got one more caller in here. We're going to put them on hold. We're going to put you on hold for 1 second, sir. Put you on hold for 1 second. So, yeah, I don't buy it. I think people saying that you're not motivated, that's stupid and should never even come out of a fan, player, or coach's mouth when it comes to any game, let alone a postseason game. DM, if New Jersey sought after 4- and 5-star blue chip players remained in New Jersey, Rutgers would be a Big Ten powerhouse. Most go to Ohio State, Michigan. And you're right. DM, something that I can actually tell you, and I'm here, very good point there. Bowl games matter. They absolutely matter across the board, multiple aspects, and people just don't seem to understand that. But DM, to continue to talk about what you were saying about the 4- and 5-star players remaining in New Jersey, you're right. Something that I can tell you here from experience is Chad Morris at Arkansas, obviously a guy that I'm a fan of and the team that I'm a fan of, came into Arkansas and said, we are going to build a wall around Arkansas to prevent players that are 4-star, 5-star players from leaving the state. Because if these players are playing high school football in our state and they're that good, we want them. And that's what New Jersey probably needs to do to get Rutgers to be in that. And look, you can't do that for everybody. Some players have their minds made up and you can't convince them to come play for your school. In Arkansas scenario, they go to Texas or tech schools in Texas or LSU or Alabama. That's just the way it is. And in Arkansas, I wouldn't blame some of those players because Arkansas has been a dumpster fire for about nearly the past decade. for Rutgers, it's kind of the same scenario. They haven't been very dominant, haven't been very competitive in the past few years, and so people necessarily don't want to go play there. But if they could give them a reason to, you're not going. Most teams can't go from 1-11, 2-10, 3-9 to a conference champion or a conference title contender in a year. It's very unrealistic and almost, I'm not saying possible, but it's tough to do. So Rutgers does need to do that. And you're right. If they did that, they could very well breed those players, breed that talent, be a bowl team maybe within the first year, the second year, and by year 3 or 4, some of those players all stick around, could be in contention for a Big Ten title. I think they might need new leadership for that. They might need Chris Ash to get the boot, but all that remains to be seen. But you're exactly right, and I think that can be the same for any team. If you can keep your in-state talent, your 4- and 5-star players in your state to come to your school, then you could be unstoppable for a very, very long time. And Will Burrow, people go to Georgia, then they leave next 2 years, like Eason, who is now going to be the quarterback at Washington. Yeah, I've said that Texas was better. You're talking about recruiting. Texas doing a phenomenal job recruiting under Tom Herman, and hopefully they can keep that up. So we're going to take our last caller right now. We're going to see who we've got on the line. Who do we have with us right now?
This is Mark Quill.
What's your name, sir?
Mark Quill.
Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Well, what's on your mind, Mark?
I got this team that I think might win the Natty this year.
A team that might win the Natty?
Yeah.
Who you got?
The Quaker Oats. 210 calories, 2.5 grams of total fat, 3 milligrams of cholesterol. Goodbye.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You get some trolls on here. Nothing you can do about it. Always having a little fun. But mark it down. If it happens, the Quaker Oats might be your 2019 national champion. So keep your eye out for that. Matthew Crook, thank you for that comment. We had a blast. Another great live stream, all made possible and all made so great because of you guys, the fans. Will Burrow, Saif Al-Shamari, haven't seen you before on our live streams, but thank you for commenting. Thank you for jumping on here. If you're not already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We greatly appreciate it. So thank you for joining. I'm here. Thank you for joining us today. Cyclone Mitch, of course, thank you as well. DM, Comic Dude 45. I know he's probably off right now, out doing whatever he's wanting to do out in the Dominican. But, yeah, once again, thank you guys so much for joining us today on this last live stream that we're going to have at least until next week, maybe not until the week after. We definitely have one shortly after week 0. But once again, thank you guys for liking, for commenting, for subscribing. Sign up for our newsletter. Newsletter is coming out tomorrow. So everybody that signed up for that, check your emails. If you have gone onto our website and signed up, you will receive an email tomorrow, our first ever newsletter. So definitely want to make sure you're keeping an eye out for that. Expert Pick still available for purchase. Going to be all year long. So make sure you check that out. Not going to want to miss any of that. Saif, thank you for that. Best YouTube analyst I can find, to be honest. And that means a lot. I'm going to probably go take a picture of that comment right after we shut this live stream down. So thank you for that. Thank you guys all again, once again, for your support. GridironExpert.com, Twitter and Instagram at Gridiron Expert. You know the drill. Thank you for watching. Continue to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you next time here on the Gridiron Expert. You guys have a great rest of the day.